Guess who's back? Hello, damnation. Thank you so much for rocking with me on the road for the last 2 weeks. Thank you for your well wishes, your prayers, and good vibrations for my travel and my return. I am back reluctantly in the States. I am so grateful to be back with all of you. We will talk about where I've been and what the fuck is going on in the United States because wow, watching from abroad and then coming back into the eye of the hurricane, it's something. It's definitely something. So I'm glad you're here, damnation. We'll get through all of this together. There's a lot to unpack today. Buckle up. Let's go. Hello, damnation. I am back in the States. Not quite sure why I came back, but nonetheless, here I am. And for those of you that might have missed my shows yesterday, well, one, the Democracy-ish that is up right now with our midweek check-in with Katie Fang and Wajahat Ali is up right now. So if you have not seen that video that we recorded yesterday on Substack, do absolutely check it out. Katie drops a lot of gems and knowledge about the law and where we are. That was a supersized episode, so do make sure to check that out. It is up now. So where have I been? And as many of you know, when I travel, I do not say where I am while I am there. And that is simply because of safety. Not because I'm scared of all of you, but I'm scared of everybody else. And I don't think that it is helpful to tell people where I am unless I'm doing an event someplace. But I was in Kenya for the last 2 weeks. It was my first time on the continent of Africa. It was extraordinary. I got to see giraffes and elephants and, touch the red dirt. And which, by the way, as soon as I got off the plane and I'm driving to my location to where I was going to stay, and all I saw, it was like, I know that this is probably so cliche, but was landing in Kenya after, by the way, 13 and a half hours on the way there, 15 hours on the way back, 15, which I did yesterday and then did 2 live shows after I landed. But when I landed, it was like, I felt like Dorothy when she landed in Oz, because everything in Kenya that I saw, that I had the privilege of seeing, was extremely green and fertile. And like the soil, folks, at least where I was red. And like red, like what you like red, like rust red, bright red, orange red. And it was like extraordinary, and everything is just so vibrant. And the food is amazing, and the people are so lovely and welcoming, and just the vegetation, the flowers, the trees. Like I just remember, like, when you're and this is just from my vantage point, right? Like being in New York and having traveled a bit around the country, but in New York in particular, when you're driving along roads or what have you, there's usually like one type of tree, right? Like you're seeing like an oak tree, or you're seeing like a maple or something like that. But let me tell you something. In Kenya, when you look up, there are like 20 distinctly different types of trees that are just all over the place. I mean, some as tall as like, some of the tallest buildings. It was yeah, it was an extraordinary trip. I was happy to get away. It was really nourishing. It was a beautiful place to start the new year. And it was really wonderful to get a different vantage point of America. You just look at America differently. And particularly when you talk to people, right? And it used to be, and I don't know about folks in the chat, but it used to be, you know, when I would travel and people always ask, like, where are you from? And, you say the US and they're like, oh, well, what state do you live in? And they're like, and I say New York and there was always this like admiration, right? And this kind of excitement. Some that had never been to America and or they love to tell you like, oh, I have family that lives in, X, Y, and Z. And now what I have found when I travel, when I've traveled recently, it is like, how is it? How are you? Your president he's a madman, yeah? Like, that's the response. It's like the response, folks, is pity. Just like when I was leaving, people were, you don't need to go. We're happy to have you. We have a digital nomad program. You don't have to leave. Um, was the response. But it was beautiful. I will be back. And I will stay longer the next time that I go. But it was a needed trip. It was a grateful trip. I have deep gratitude for being able to go for that long, but it is for some of the reason why, right? My internet was kind of wonky. Um, but towards the end was able to like get better internet and things like that. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with y'all. It was wonderful. Maybe next week I'll show you like some of the pictures and stuff. Because I will tell you, I hate zoos. Let me just like say this. I hate zoos. I hate seeing animals caged for our amusement. And I know that there's educational purposes and what have you, but I don't like them. So to be able to see um animals in their natural habitat and you be the observer going in, like they're in their home and you're kind of like getting to look. And again, I didn't go on safari. I will next time, but I did get to go to a elephant sanctuary, and I went to Giraffe Manor, which was just so fucking cool. Like giraffes, by the way, beautiful, elegant, really, really, really cool. So anyway, that's where I was, and I can't say that I'm happy to be back, but I am back. So let us begin. Because I will tell you that I said this yesterday on the show. Watching America on a different continent is like watching a shitstorm met a tsunami of sharks, met like juggling crazy clowns with knives. Like it looks even crazier when you're not in it. Like, when people are just like, they grew up in a dysfunctional household and then they go to like a regular household that maybe doesn't have that level of dysfunction, and then they realize just how crazy their household is because they've experienced something else. That's how it feels when you leave the country and then you're in another country and you're just like, wow, they seem so high functioning. They seem happy. Their president isn't trying to kill them actively. I will say this: Kenya has an extraordinary uh, homeless population, and 1.7 million people live in these shanty houses, like houses that are essentially built like with tinfoil, could go up in, with a drop of a match, right? Like it is extraordinary the level of poverty that 1.7 million people, and we drove on our way to a place, like drove and saw, and I mean it was alarming, right? But this is what happens in countries where you don't necessarily have functioning governments, where government officials are pocketing money that is being taxed of the public, and it's not going back to the public, right? So it was like, in one instance, I'm both holding the beauty and this immense, like, feeling as a Black person, like stepping foot on the continent of Africa, and then also holding, oh my God, this population of homelessness and this kind of poverty, this is what is coming to the United States, right? Like, this is what happens when you don't have social safety nets and you don't have institutions and nonprofit organizations that are dedicated to helping people, right? So it is, you can hold multiple truths at the same time, but you see what happens when there is a sucking of money and resources from the people to enrich another class of people, and then what happens when folks don't have jobs, right? And what happens when, in Kenya, several months ago, there were massive protests and the police shot and killed protesters, right? Much in the same way that they're shooting and killing protesters, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The number of protesters that have been killed inside of Iran. Again, that's what happens in places where they don't, they have democracy light, or no democracy at all. So it was a very interesting experience. Which brings us to where we are in this country. So Donald Trump gives an interview with Reuters, I don't know, however you'd like to say it. Gives an interview, and says, quote, "We shouldn't even have November midterms," according to Donald Trump. And look, Reuters. Thank you, everyone, with your phonetics. Reuters. Okay, so he gives this interview with Reuters. And it's the same thing that all of us have been saying. We said it in 2024. We said it when Donald Trump tried to steal the 2020 election. We said, if this man gets back into power, he is not going to hold elections, right? He is going to we're going to talk about his invoking of the Insurrection Act. We're going to talk about all of the things that Donald Trump has said. Now, we know that the man is a liar, right? Like, we know never to trust his word about certain things, but we also know that most of the things that Donald Trump said that he was going to do, I'm going to campaign on retribution. And what does he keep talking about right now as there is an onslaught on Minnesota? Retribution. He keeps talking about avenging, right? And, these people are patriots. That's what he called the 1,600 insurrectionists that he pardoned, who are now a part of ICE, right? We are learning through leaked data that not only are insurrectionists are part of ICE, but also Enrique Torres, who was formerly the leader of the Proud Boys, a white nationalist group, right? Is an ICE agent now that we are paying for, right? So when Donald Trump has said these things, like the 2020 election will be stolen, that you need to go take your country back, when he has called people vermin and animals and all of these different things, we know what has followed. So now Donald Trump, in a interview did not mince words. He said we should not even have elections. Donald Trump said shouldn't even have midterms in November, according to his interview, ramping up his attacks on the upcoming election after repeatedly expressing alarm about the possibility of Republicans losing control of Congress. So Trump claimed to Reuters, because of his administration's many accomplishments. Listen to this. Just the mental gymnastics that this man does, that the Republican Party does. So you tell me that if you are so wildly successful, Donald Trump says that there are so many accomplishments during his second term that when you think of it, we shouldn't even have an election in November because he's been so successful that we'll just rock with it. Is that right? He's on one hand lamenting at the fact that Republicans, according to the polls that he says are all fake, that Republicans look like they're going to lose because presidents, when they win their second term, usually they lose the midterms. And he says that it's something psychological. And it's like, yeah. And also, if you give your party nothing to run on, if there are actually no accomplishments for them to run on, then yeah, their chances of winning, or at least the very least holding on, become very, very slim. So bobblehead Barbie stood up before the press, and when asked a very real question, because of course, everything with them, mind you, is a fucking joke until it's not, a reporter says, many Americans have risked their lives, have died defending democracy and the right to vote. Was it a good thing for the president of the United States to joke about not having midterms? And of course, bobblehead Barbie said it was simply joking, speaking facetiously. We're doing such a great job. Maybe we should just keep it rolling. Again, if you were doing such a great job, then your poll numbers wouldn't be in the toilet. If you were doing such a great job, then the Republicans would have health care to run on. They would have jobs numbers to run on. But they literally have, when you think about it, folks, when you think about what Donald Trump has done in this last year, there is nothing positive for Republicans to run on. That what is happening with these ICE agents and law enforcement, that overall people's opinions about law enforcement are going down. Okay? Even in their own Republican and the independent circles, the feelings about law enforcement because of the brutality that people are witnessing with ICE is going down. So go on to say Democrats are favored to make gains in Congress in November based on polling and historical trends showing the parties not in the White House typically does better in the midterms. And this is when Trump says it's some deep psychological thing. No, it's actually this. You ride high, right, on your approval rating, which Donald Trump, his approval lasted for a month before he started to decline, which was historic in and of itself, because guess what? Most people, when they're just elected, are given a bit of leeway and they get to ride that for the first year. Not Donald Trump, not at all, actually. So in the interview, he expressed repeatedly concern about the possibility his party could lose control of Congress in the midterms, and saying that they will find a reason to impeach me. They'll find a reason because You are violating the Constitution. You are grifting off of the American people. Right now, there are reports that Donald Trump is literally taking the Venezuelan oil money that he already has and putting it in an offshore account. That is according to Courier News. Like, he's already made $5 billion in the year that he has been president, right? Like, any little tiny investigation into that would give you a whole fucking series of quid pro quos. So Republicans have also undertaken efforts to try and stave off Democratic gains in November, most notably through redistricting efforts. Oh, you mean gerrymandering and trying to suppress the actual votes of people and to not count Black people's votes or brown people's votes, right? Like, that's how they plan on winning. And so here was Donald Trump. Look at the date. Back on January 6th, where he said that Republicans have to win, otherwise they're going to impeach me. Take a listen.
But you got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached. We don't impeach them. You know why? Because they're meaner than we are. We should have impeached Joe Biden for 100 different things.
Well, you can't impeach people for being old or being slow. What would be the impeachable offense with Joe Biden? Let's not even go down that rabbit hole. The fact is that Donald Trump knows that he is in a shit ton of trouble. And who else better to offer us just how much trouble this administration is in? And this is why, again, we're going to talk about the escalation. We're going to talk about the ramping up of violence against the people of these United States. We're going to talk about all of the things, folks, that I said, and many, many other people have said with bigger platforms and voices would happen if this motherfucker became president again. But take a listen to Harry Enton, who's going to run us through where Donald Trump stands in the eyes of the people.
Not a lot of differences. Look across the board. Just look at Donald Trump's net approval rating. Negative, 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 negative. Negative 14, negative 16, negative 17, and negative 19 according to AP North, with no real change in the aggregate from where we were last month. Trump is underwater like the New Jersey Jets.
How long has he been underwater?
How long has he been underwater? It shouldn't be so much of a surprise that there really has been no change up here. Why is it should not be a surprise? Because just take a look at the days that Trump has been underwater. We are talking about every single day in my aggregate of polls since March 12th of 2025. In terms of days in a row, we are talking about 310 days in a row that Donald Trump's net approval rating has been in the negative. And that is why, of course, I bring back the New Jersey Jets.
That's a long, long time. What issues? I was going to make a Jets joke.
Well,
but
go ahead.
There are too many and not enough time.
I know, it's so easy.
Look, which issues, really, is the president doing well on?
Yeah, what issues is President Trump doing well on? None of them, really. He's doing poorly on all of them. What are we talking about here? Well, we spoke about immigration last hour. He's at a negative 11 points there, of course, had been a strength for him. Foreign policy, minus 14 points. The economy, the reason that Donald Trump really got elected to a second term was to fix the economy. He's at 16 points underwater there. Trade and tariffs, such a big part of his second term agenda. Negative 18 points there. And we really haven't spoken about the Epstein case in a while, but 38 points underwater there. Negative, 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 and negative on immigration.
You know, with the Epstein case so low, that very first sentence you said there, they might like. We haven't spoken about the Epstein case in a while. With all these other things going on, it hasn't received a lot of focus.
Perhaps the only good news for him.
All right, the economy, clearly the most important issue to the American people. A lot of questions about how President Trump is handling that. One person is key to that. That's Fed Chair Jerome Powell. What do people think? What do the betting markets think about if Powell will last till his term expires?
Yeah, you know, Donald Trump wants to get Jay Powell out as the Fed chair, but just take a look here. The chance that that happens before May, just 8% at this point, according to the prediction market. So again, it's just universally at this point bad news for Donald Trump across the board. He can't get the guy out that he wants to. And on the economy, immigration, foreign policy, the Epstein case, trade and tariffs, negative, negative, negative in basically every single poll and by double digits. You can make that New Jersey Jets joke.
Donald Trump is underwater negatively in every single fucking category that matters. And what I wanted you to really lean in on was when they said, well, he's negative 38 points on the Epstein case. And you know what? With all these things going on, we haven't really been focusing on the Epstein case. And then Harry says, yeah, that's probably the only positive thing that we have going on, that he has going on right now, is the fact that because he kidnapped the president and first lady of Venezuela and invaded it. He's been threatening Greenland, which, by the way, all of the European nations have ramped up their military over in Greenland and are bringing in more backup in the event that Donald Trump decides to invade, on top of escalating the violence in Minnesota, ramping up door-to-door fucking Gestapo-like tactics that are happening by blocking off streets and pulling people out of their fucking homes. Yeah, with all that going on, we forgot that the man may be a fucking pedophile. And there may be pictures and videos that already tell us what Donald Trump, in his own words, has told us. That, you know what, he likes them young, like Jeffrey Epstein, that he can grab a woman by the pussy whenever he wants, that, called his own daughter a nice piece of ass, that he started a pageant so that he could go wherever he wants and walk in on young girls getting dressed, right? That Jeffrey Epstein, his best friend, brought over a 14-year-old girl to Mar-a-Lago to introduce her to Donald Trump. Like, folks, I know that there is just so much that is going on that it is hard to keep track. And frankly, I'll be honest with you, most days I don't fucking want to, because it's like keeping track of a fucking nightmare that you just keep reliving every single waking goddamn moment. It's unrelenting. One of my friends said to me yesterday when I came back and said, Danielle, this place is like a nightmare I can't shake myself awake from. And she's like, I'm trying desperately to hold on to joy. Like, I need joy. And yet, like, it's getting harder and harder to hold on to. And I'm like, yeah, I hear you, right? Like, somebody in the comments just said, like, by me going away has them now thinking about potentially living abroad. Folks, like, not everybody has the ability to think about it, but for those that actually do have the means to think about it, I implore you to think about it and create a plan. Let me tell you this, quick aside, and I'll come back. How many of you have Verizon, right? And experienced yesterday's all day SOS blackout? I have Verizon. And yesterday, after like 2 hours into the fucking blackout, I was thinking to myself, are they test running a government like controlled blackout? Is this a fucking dry run right now? That when you looked at the map of what areas of the country were experiencing the Verizon blackout that they said was just like maintenance and work, it just so happened that it was mostly blue states and big cities. Over here, from New York down to DC. On the West Coast, right? LA, San Francisco. And I'm thinking to myself, Danielle, like, don't become a tin hat conspiracy theorist. Like, there's no data. There's, you don't have a source or anybody that's telling you, but there is a feeling. Do you know what I'm saying? The Iranian regime has blacked out Iran, closed down the fucking airspace, shut off the internet and the fucking water for the last week as they murder their own citizens. Do you know what happened? So yesterday with Verizon, you were able to send texts, you were able to do FaceTime over Wi-Fi, right? But you know what you weren't able to do? You weren't able to make any phone calls. The only calls that you could make were SOS phone calls, so to 911. It lasted all day. So when I went on social media, right, not over to fucking that dumpster fire X, but when I went on Threads and Blue Sky, people were saying the same fucking things. They're like, this seems really curious to happen right now. And of course, other people were like, well, AT&T wasn't down and T-Mobile wasn't down. So like, you know, put your tinfoil hat away. Like you have no proof. And I think to myself, what do we mean when we really say proof, right? Because we have both the smoke and the gun as it pertains to Donald Trump and the Epstein files, right? We had all the fucking evidence. Donald Trump literally hid documents in his fucking toilet. So we knew, right, that he stole documents from the United States and was indicted for it. We had the evidence. We had the evidence that Donald Trump incited an insurrection, right? As he told people that he knew were armed to go take their country back and storm the Capitol, and then didn't call in the National Guard, but is all trigger happy with the military nowadays as his own personal Gestapo. So when we have, right, as a country, a boatload of fucking evidence in our faces, we don't tend to really act on it, do we? So when folks were just like, oh, don't put on your tinfoil hat and talk about the Verizon outage as being a possible test run for a fucking nationwide blackout, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I don't need actually any evidence right now with this. I just need my gut. And my gut is telling me that we should all really consider getting backup phones, right? Satellite phones or something, walkie-talkies with like your closest clique, your family, so that in the event, whether it's a national disaster or a Trump-made one, that you're able to get in contact with people. Because let us use right now these moments that seem like they're testing the fences for us to say, okay, well, if this does happen, and it isn't just a few hours, if it's a few days or a few weeks, how am I going to get in touch with my family and friends? How am I going, right, to get around? We are witnessing this happen in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities in the state of Minnesota right now. What happens when ICE shuts down your street and is going door to door? What happens when you are picked up, but you're a citizen and no one knows where you are for 3 and 4 days? Like, things are happening, folks. And for those of us that are not in the immediacy of the danger in this very moment, might want to use this time to set up a fucking plan for ourselves and our loved ones, because it is only a matter of time before it comes to your state, your city, your front doorstep. That was my casual aside. Okay. Because this is the shit that, like, I start to think about putting together like a go bag. I start to think about these things and then I say, oh, Danielle, breathe, calm down. And you know what? That little breathe, calm down voice is getting quieter and quieter and quieter. And the I want to survive and be able to thrive voice is getting louder and louder and louder. So if you're like me that keeps telling yourself, just, relax, it's okay, like, it's not that extreme yet, I'm telling you, and I'm telling myself too out loud, make a fucking plan. Do it this weekend. Sit down with your family and friends. Make a plan. What happens? Even if nothing on the list you actually get to do, the fact that you have something to hold on to, the fact that you can orient yourself in one way or another, whether it is a meetup point, right? Like whether it is this is the text that goes out if I'm in distress, like whether it any of those things, folks, let's start. Let's get it together. There are some that started years ago, and I'm telling you, and I'm telling myself, plan. It may save your life and the lives of people that you love. Okay? That is my PSA. And why am I in a PSA kind of mood? Because this motherfucker is absolutely off the goddamn rails. Because this is what Donald Trump is doing at 8:04 a.m. today. He's not grabbing a cup of coffee. He's not, going on a walk. No. He is sitting on his phone, hopped up on whatever they're putting him on so that grandpa can stay awake, and going off on social media like from the moment that he opens his eyes. And this is what he's writing. If the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators, because apparently, mind you, the professional agitator piece, this is the same shit that they said about the children killed in Sandy Hook. This is the same thing that they said, right? That the right-wingers said about the children of Parkland, right? That anyone that advocates for their constitutional rights, right? Not to be killed, not to be beaten up by police, is somehow a professional agitator. Everybody apparently is being paid. I don't know where my fucking check is. I have yet to receive one. But this is the same language that got the InfoWars cat, right? Having to pay out billions or millions of dollars to the family of Sandy Hook by lying about who the victims were and saying, that these kids, that these parents fucking had to bury didn't even exist to begin with. Like, do you know how fucking sick and twisted of a human you have to be to prey on dead children and their families? I say that because, again, this is the running talking point of how Republicans are able to dismiss the outrage of the people, is when they tell themselves that, they're not really upset. They're just paid actors. And I think that they truly believe this because they pay people to sit in at their rallies. We know that Donald Trump has paid people to put on a Blacks for Trump shirt and go sit in his fucking rallies. Like, we absolutely know that Republicans have done that. So they just assume that Democrats do the same thing, except in fact, we fucking don't. So he says, if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists, from attacking the patriots of ICE who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me. No, I don't know if he understands the definition of many, but many presidents have not used the Insurrection Act. And quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in a once great state. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, here's the funny thing, is that Donald Trump is the king of chaos, creating the chaos that then he's going to tell you that he's going to add more troops to the already 3,000 troops that are on the ground. And I don't want to call them troops. 3,000 ICE agents, thugs that are on the ground, right? He wants to now add in more military folks on top of that to get a hold of the situation. The situation is out of control because you have untrained, undereducated fucking doofs that are trigger happy white nationalists going around with a chip on their shoulder and the ability to instigate and harm whoever they want because y'all chirping like they have 100% immunity. So if you give 100% immunity to the fucking Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, what the fuck do you think is going to happen? Oh, you know exactly what will happen. A mother of 3 will be murdered in her car. On top of which, by the way, they also shot another person in Minnesota last night in the leg. So, according to the Minneapolis Tribune, Trump threatens to send troops to Minnesota after federal agent shoots man over alleged attack. Because, again, this is what the fuck happens, right? Trump claimed professional agitators and insurrectionists were among the demonstrations in Minneapolis as he threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act. The federal government released the new details about the shooting in North Minneapolis that sparked the protest. Trump, this morning, threatened to use the Insurrection Act in Minnesota after a federal agent, once again, these untrained fucking lunatics that do not know the word de-escalation at all, are just indiscriminately shooting people, shooting into crowds. I watched a video that I shared on Threads of a black man who was being interviewed after ICE agents threw tear gas canisters into his fucking car where his children were, and he had to grab the 6-month-old baby who reports are saying their heart stopped and needed to be rushed to the fucking hospital because who throws tear gas into a fucking car? They are using chemical weapons on unarmed citizens. And then they want to have the audacity to get on mainstream news and talk about going to liberate the people of Iran when the people of Minnesota are under occupation. Are you fucking kidding me? You can't make this shit up. The Insurrection Act of 1807 would allow the president to deploy troops domestically. It hasn't been used for several decades in the U.S. and was last invoked to respond to the Los Angeles riots after the police beating of Rodney King. On Wednesday night in North Minneapolis, witnesses say a series of gunshots followed a car chase and a foot chase involving federal agents. Now, listen to what federal agents said, and you tell me if you believe them. Federal and local authorities said a man was shot in the leg after an agent was attacked with a snow shovel and a broom. Are these the same people that wanted to tell me that Jonathan Ross, the man who shot and killed Renee Nicole Good, had internal bleeding? The same man that they said was run over and dragged by a car? You want me to believe that a man was attacking ICE with a snow shovel and a broom? And so a snow shovel and a broom, what don't they have? Bullets. Law enforcement and about 200 demonstrators clashed for several hours with chemical irritants and flashbangs being deployed and some protesters vandalizing vehicles at the end of the night. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care if they were vandalizing a fucking thing. I really don't. Because you know what wouldn't be happening? What wouldn't be happening is any of this if ICE hadn't been occupying fucking Minneapolis, dragging people, killing people, and instigating fucking violence. How about that? How about none of this would be happening if the president of the United States wasn't on his broke down social media platform fucking threatening political leaders, right? How the fuck do you expect people to react? So the shooting reignited tensions between protesters and law enforcement a week after Minneapolis resident Renee Good was shot and killed by ICE agent Jonathan Ross. Not long before reports of the shooting, Governor Tim Walz told the Trump administration to end the occupation during a live address about the continued surge of federal immigration agents in Minnesota. Walz called on Minnesotans to protest peacefully and record federal agents. And folks, here's the thing. And I'm going to play you the clip of Governor Walz, because I want to get your thoughts before I do a refresher on exactly what the Insurrection Act is. I want to get your genuine thoughts on Tim Walz's part of his speech here to the people of Minnesota. Now, take a listen, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
The things I want you to hear as you watch the news and look out for your neighbors. First, Donald Trump wants this chaos. He wants confusion. And yes, he wants more violence on our streets. We cannot give him what he wants. We must protest loudly, urgently, but also peacefully. Indeed, as hard as we will fight in the courts and at the ballot box, we cannot and will not let violence prevail. You're angry? I'm angry. Angry's not a strong enough word, but we must remain peaceful. Second, you are not powerless. You are not helpless, and you are certainly not alone. All across Minnesota, people are learning about opportunities, not just to resist, but to help people who are in danger. Thousands upon thousands of our fellow Minnesotans are going to be relying on mutual aid in the days and weeks to come, and they need our support. Tonight, I want to share another way you can help. Witness. Help us establish a record of exactly what's happening in our communities. You have an absolute right to peacefully film ICE agents as they conduct these activities. So carry your phone with you at all times. And if you see these ICE agents in your neighborhood, take out that phone and hit record. Help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans, not just to establish a record for posterity, but to bank evidence for future prosecution. The third thing I want to say to you tonight is, we will not have to live like this forever. Accountability is coming at the voting booth and in court. We will reclaim our communities from Donald Trump. We will reestablish a sense of safety for our neighbors, and we will bring an end to this moment of chaos, confusion, and trauma. We will find a way to move forward, and we'll do it together, and we'll not be alone. Every day, we are working with business leaders, faith leaders, legal experts, and elected officials from across this country. They've all seen what Donald Trump is trying to do to our state, and they know their states could be next. And that brings me to the fourth thing I want to say tonight, Minnesota, how incredibly proud I am of the way that you've risen to meet this unbearable moment. But I'm not at all surprised, because this is who we are. Minnesotans believe in the rule of law, and Minnesotans believe in the dignity of all people. We're a place where there's room for everybody, no matter who you are or who you love or where you came from.
Okay. So, what are your thoughts? Right? For my friends live in the chat right now and those of you watching after the fact, what are your thoughts on Tim Walz's address to his state? I'm going to give you my thoughts. And my thoughts are this. Yes, I agree with you, Lynn. Tim Walz is a good man, right? He's a good, decent man. This address was also weak as fuck. I'm going to be honest. I don't need any more nice words. I really don't. I needed Tim Walz to stand up and say not the 4 things that Minnesotans can do in order to protect each other and their state. I needed to hear the 4 actions that he is fucking taking to get a hold of his goddamn state and to run the federal government out of Minnesota, right? I wanted to hear what he could actually do. We are filing a lawsuit against Donald Trump, against Kristi Noem, against the ICE agent that killed Renee Good. We are filing a court action against the FBI for not working with our local law enforcement on getting to the bottom of what the fuck actually happened, right? With the multiple camera angles that we saw with the confrontation that ended in Renee Good being dead, her wife being widowed, and her children without a mother, right? Like, we are suing. I'm telling everybody to boycott on this day. We are no longer sending federal funds to the administration since they are withholding federal funds. We are not going to be providing federal funds, right? Like, I need fucking action. I don't need a hug. I mean, some days I do, but not from the fucking governor. I need you to tell me what you are doing. And then you can tell me what I can do. On January 23rd, stay the fuck home. Nobody's going to school. Nobody's going to work. We're doing a statewide boycott. Right? Like, we need action right now. We don't need more words. And we sure as fuck do not need to be told that, oh, don't worry, folks. Just bide your time until November. And then magically, the feckless fucking Democrats that can't manage to find their fucking spines right now will somehow magically turn into warriors the day after midterm elections. Like, give us a fucking break. People are dying. Okay? Dying. He already had his colleagues murdered in their fucking home because of MAGA. I get it. Governor Walz, you have been through a lot and you are like doing, I guess, the best that you think that you can do. But I'm going to say to you, move away from the niceties. The niceties are done. You're under fucking attack. Okay? Call on your other fucking blue state governors. I'm calling an emergency meeting with blue state governors for us to sit down and create a plan of action, because we need our own domestic NATO. Because when the federal government decides to attack one state, they are going to attack all states. And we need a plan and to band together. This is the type of fucking action that I am talking about. So don't get on fucking TV and tell me that everything is going to be okay when clearly the fuck it is not. Because babies are being rushed to the emergency room because ICE agents are throwing fucking banger grenades and fucking tear gas at them. And not because anybody took them to a fucking protest, but because they're in a fucking pedestrian car. Folks, I like... You also had Cory Booker put out a bullshit fucking video today talking about, oh, I'm going to be holding ICE agents accountable. They need more training and body cameras. Yeah, because putting body cameras on cops that go to what? The police department headquarters that they can manipulate and do whatever. Oh, yeah, that has stopped the killing of unarmed Black people in this country. Oh, wait a minute. No, the fuck it hasn't. You don't train Nazism out of a fucking Nazi. You shut down the fucking system that created the Nazi in the first fucking place. That's what you do. So any fucking Democratic politician that is running for election right now, if they are not uttering the phrase, I will abolish ICE, you don't want them. Because you know what the fuck we're not doing? We're not voting blue no matter fucking who. Because voting blue no matter who is how we get these feckless motherfuckers in the first fucking place. We are at war. They have declared war on us. That is what it looks like in Minnesota right now. And it is coming to a fucking city and state near you next. So what the fuck I don't need are the Chuck Schumers and the Hakeem Jeffries and the fucking Cory Bookers that take more money from AIPAC than fucking God, telling us that all we need is to have ICE have better fucking training. ICE doesn't need to fucking exist. And by the way, you had decades to create a fucking immigration plan and you didn't. And that's also why we're in this fucking situation. I gotta tell you, folks, I have about fucking had it. I don't have time. We don't have time. America doesn't have time. Our tattered fucking Constitution doesn't have time to sit around and want to play nice and say, oh no, we don't need to abolish this entire agency that is now the 16th strongest military in the fucking world, that is beating fucking citizens. They are responsible for, at least that we know of, over 30 deaths last year and 2 this fucking year and counting. That's what we know of. Because, by the way, following the murder of Renee Good, fucking Kristi Noem passed new policy that would deny representatives access to detention centers. So you tell me, if you're running a detention center on the fucking up and up, then why the fuck can't we see it? Oh, could it be because they don't have any clean fucking water, running water, facilities, beds? Could it be because they're all running fucking mini C-cots? I'm telling you, we are here not just because of Donald Trump and MAGA. We are here because of feckless, moderate, centrist, lackluster, weak fucking establishment Democrats who want so desperately to preserve the status quo and their fiefdoms that they have allowed an authoritarian dictator and a regime to take over, and then want to tell us that they're not going to use every tool in their toolbox. They're not going to use the budgetary process as a potential to shut down the fucking government so that you shut down funding for ICE. Like, oh no, Hakeem Jeffrey said that's not on the table. Then tell me what the fuck is on the table, because at this point, I'm flipping the fucking table. And y'all should be too. We ain't voting blue no matter who. We're voting for people with integrity, people with fucking plans, right? With strategic vision, and who are fighters. That's who the fuck we're voting for. Because otherwise, they can sit the fuck out, as far as I'm concerned. Let us now quickly run through what exactly Donald Trump is threatening right now, with saying this morning on his broke down social media platform that he is going to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minnesota. So let us be reminded as to exactly what this is. So this is coming from the Brennan Institute. The Insurrection Act explained. The Insurrection Act authorizes the president to deploy military forces inside the United States to suppress rebellion or domestic violence, or to enforce the law in certain situations. The statute implements Congress's authority under the Constitution to, quote, provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. It is the primary exception to the Posse Comitatus Act, under which federal military forces are generally barred from participating in civilian law enforcement activities. What does invoking the Insurrection Act allow the president and the military to do? Caveat, caveat. Under normal circumstances, the Comitatus Act forbids U.S. military, including federal armed forces and National Guard troops who have been called into federal service, from taking part in civilian law enforcement. This prohibition reflects an American tradition that views military interference in civilian government as being inherently dangerous to liberty. I want you to understand here that they said it reflects an American tradition, okay? Invoking the Insurrection Act temporarily suspends that rule and allows the president to deploy the military to assist civilian authorities with law enforcement. With law enforcement, not against law enforcement, in the way that ICE is now working against local law enforcement in Minnesota, and how the FBI and DHS are working against local law enforcement in Minnesota. That might involve soldiers doing anything from enforcing a federal court order to suppressing an uprising against the government. Of course, not every domestic use of the military involves law enforcement activity. Other laws, such as the Stafford Act, allow the military to be used to respond to natural disasters, public health crises, and other similar events. We saw some of that, not the Insurrection Act being invoked, but we did see National Guard helping out, particularly during COVID, if you remember, in certain states and areas. In theory, the Insurrection Act should be used only in a crisis. By the way, not a crisis of your own creation, but an actual fucking crisis, okay? That is truly beyond the capacity of civilian authorities to manage. Folks, I'm going over, so do bear with me. However, the Insurrection Act fails to adequately define or limit when it may be used, and instead gives the president significant power to decide when and where to deploy U.S. military domestically. When can the president invoke the Insurrection Act? Troops can be deployed under 3 sections. Okay? Each of these sections is designed for a different set of situations. And again, this is all if you happen to be a law-abiding citizen or a law-abiding elected official, which we know Donald Trump is not. And neither is Stephen Miller, who has a fucking hard-on for the Insurrection Act and martial law. Okay? Section 251 allows the president to deploy troops if a state's legislature or governor, if the legislator is unavailable, requests federal aid to suppress an insurrection. So for Section 251, this is a governor calling on the president to invoke the Insurrection Act, which is what happened the last time that it was used, which was in 1992 after the beating of Rodney King and the acquittal of those officers, which is what led to the fucking riots in the first place. George H.W. Bush, as governor, was called on to invoke the Insurrection Act by the governor of California, which he did. While Section 251 requires state consent, Sections 252 and 253 allow the president to deploy troops without a request from the affected state, even against the state's wishes. This is what Donald Trump is holding on to. Section 252 permits deployment in order to enforce the laws of the United States or to suppress a rebellion. This is why they keep referring to anybody that is protesting against Donald Trump as what? An insurrectionist. They have been using that language since the beginning of this second term. They don't use insurrection when talking about the people that shat in the fucking Capitol building that Donald Trump pardoned. No, but anybody that goes against him is an insurrectionist, and they use language for a reason. Okay? It is not arbitrary. It is purposeful. We go on. Section 253 has 2 parts. The first allows the president to use military in a state to suppress any insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combination, or conspiracy that so hinders the execution of the laws, that any portion of the state's inhabitants are deprived of a constitutional right, and state authorities are unable or unwilling to protect that right. Eisenhower and Kennedy relied on this provision to deploy troops to desegregate schools in the South after the Supreme Court's landmark decision in Brown v. the Board of Education. By the way, in modern times, when this act was invoked, it was to help the citizens of said state. Whether it was with a desegregation, whether it was to stop the state from boiling over into a war zone, as what was happening during the LA riots, it has always been used to help the citizens and help law enforcement, not to oppress, suppress, and violently attack those citizens and to intimidate them into staying in their homes and not acting on their constitutional right to protest. Okay? The second part of Section 253 permits the president to deploy troops to suppress any insurrection. I said that part. Okay. What are the limitations? Quickly. Although the Insurrection Act appears to confer wide-ranging authority, the Department of Justice has long taken the position that the law is limited by the Constitution. And that word again, tradition. Okay? What do we know about Donald Trump and tradition? He don't give a fuck. The man busted up the East Wing of the White House and is getting ready to do the same to the West Wing. He doesn't care about tradition. He doesn't care about political norms. So all of this shit, moot. In a 1964 memorandum, the Deputy Attorney General wrote that the law may be invoked in 3 circumstances: when a state requests help in putting down an insurrection, when deployment is needed to enforce a federal court order, or when state and local law enforcement have completely broken down. Those are the times when you're allowed to institute the Insurrection Act. We're in trouble if we are hoping that Donald Trump is going to act from a place of tradition and morals. He's not. He is using Minnesota as a test case for what he plans to do nationally. He is going after them because Tim Walz ran against him, right? Ilhan Omar, he fucking hates and lives rent-free in his brain. It's why he has now taken away protective status for Somalis. And here's what I want to leave you with, because I had a whole other story, but we'll get to that next week when I bring in an expert to talk about what is happening in Iran, because I think it's important to weave these things together, but I'm already so over time. But I want to leave you with something good. And it brought tears to my eyes. And I think that it is important, as I was saying, to hold on to joy, to have reminders of the fact that there are still good people in the world that do good for no other reason than just the feeling to do good. And this is a story that Anderson Cooper on CNN is probably one of the only mainstream broadcasters to cover. It's been all over social media, and it's the first time that I'm talking about it on this show. The Buddhist monks who are on a 2,300-mile pilgrimage from Texas to Washington, D.C. as a walk for peace, not for any political party, not for any person, but I want you to take a listen to this story because honestly, it gave me a little hope and it gave me a little bit of faith in humanity. And that's the purpose of this walk. That's the purpose of what it is that they are offering to the rest of us. So take a listen.
Violence in the streets of Tehran and here at home, we wanted to end tonight with a few steps toward peace. More than 2 months ago, a small group of Buddhist monks began a pilgrimage, a walk from Texas to Washington. They haven't gotten a lot of attention on national television, but online and on the road, they're bringing people together in ways we rarely see. When 20 monks left their Buddhist temple in Fort Worth, Texas, 81 days ago, there was little fanfare. They planned to walk to Washington, some 2,300 miles away. At first, few passers-by knew who they were. This thin line of silent monks, accompanied by their dog Aloka, picked up as a stray on an earlier walk in India. But with each step and each day that passed, word began to spread. It was, they said, a pilgrimage, not about politics, but about peace. In their words, to raise awareness of loving kindness and compassion across America and the world. In Houston, Texas, they prayed for police, giving them Buddhist blessing cords, a symbol, the monks said, of a shared prayer for the officers' safety, well-being, and endurance as they serve the community. Their temple began posting their procession online, often with music accompanying their march. And that's when the crowds began to grow. Some who met the monks along their route were brought to tears. Others offered food and water and encouraged Aloka, who now has his own Facebook page with more than 600,000 followers. But the journey has not been easy. Some of the monks walk barefoot. Just weeks in, their escort vehicle was hit by a truck, and one of the monks, Bhante Damfomasan's leg was broken and had to be amputated. He implored the others to continue, and now they say he walks with them in spirit. This man, Osbaldo Duran, donated a new escort vehicle so the monks could continue on.
And I saw that, I like, no, they need some help. We gotta help them, they're walking for us.
Now cities offer them police escorts to ensure their safety, and more people want to walk with them. As they cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, site of an infamous standoff during the struggle for civil rights, they pause to pray, and hundreds joined alongside them. The monks begin their days at dawn and sometimes don't rest until night. This was 70 days into their journey in Arnoldsville, Georgia. They've crossed 6 states so far, and with each step and each stop, more are moved, and their message has spread. This was the scene in Columbia, South Carolina this week, one of their biggest crowds so far. We may not hear many people speak of compassion and kindness in politics or culture today, but for many, these monks are a sign of hope. Their steps may be silent, but it seems they're being heard loud and clear.
Seeing people from all walks of life and faiths come together has been deeply moving. There's something profoundly powerful in the simplicity of their act. Monks walking for peace. Instead of worrying about the future, maybe the real question is, what are your plans? Because peace only happens when each of us decides to play our part.
Well, the monks hope to arrive in Washington February 12th and have a gathering to mark the end of their 2,300-mile pilgrimage.
I thought that their story, their sacrifice to spread love and kindness, even at the cost of a leg, their feet, their own safety, is a message we desperately need right now. That there are people, there are humans that believe in love and kindness, that believe that peace is possible. And while Donald Trump may reflect what is wrong with humanity, I wanted to end the show today with the story of these monks who reflect what is right about humanity. We are complex, we are layered, we are beautiful, we are grotesque. We all have the possibility to be one, the other, a multitude of things. And it is a reminder to all of us, what are we doing to bring more light, to bring more love, to bring more compassion into this world that is seemingly getting darker by the day? That is it for me today, dear friends, on the Danielle Moodie Show. Thank you so much for hanging with me as I went over. I want to shout out my super stickers and super thanks. Thank you so much, Marilyn. Ernst, as always, for the $5. Mr. Will for $5. Zoe, thank you so much for the $9.99. Ernst again for $5. MK, thank you for the $1.99. Mr. Will again for the $5. Linda became a YouTube paid member. Thank you so much. Susan gifted a membership. Susan became a member for 2 months, and I'm so grateful for you and all the work that you put into this channel. Thank you so much, FRP for $20, Kate for $10, Susan again for $10. Appreciate you. Real Talk for $5, Margaret for $10. Beans for $20, appreciate you. Henry for $20, appreciate you. Real Talk for $2, Cat Food for $10, and Vivian for $10. I appreciate you guys so much. This is independent media. It is people powered. And I'm only able to do this because of all of you. And if you do not have the resources to become a paid member of the channel or to give super stickers or super thanks, please do like, comment, and subscribe. It goes a long way to feeding the algorithm. If you are watching this on Substack, please do consider, if you have the resources, to become a paid member, subscriber of the Damn Digest. But folks, know that all of my content remains free. It is with your contributions that allows me to continue to do what I believe that I am called to do. Folks, appreciate you all so very much. Oh, Navy, thank you so much for the $4.99. Folks, appreciate you all so very much. Waj and I will be back tomorrow live, 12 p.m. Eastern, for Democracy-ish. And then the Danielle Moodie Show, as always, back on Monday. Thank you, Matt, for the $20. Back on Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. As always, power to the people and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane, and in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe. Find joy, find peace, spread love, spread kindness. We will get through this. We will get through to the other side. Be well, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for Democracy-ish.